Hey guys, in this episode, we're going to be jumping into the nitty gritty of the types of home inspections, all the different ancillary products that Assurance Home Inspection offers, why those are important to you, and if you're thinking about buying or selling a house, you really need to know the different types so you can decide which ones are best for you. Stay tuned.
Hey guys, welcome to The Buzz, Coffee and Real Estate. Today we've got Home Assurance here with us again, and we're going to dig into kind of the nitty gritty of what home inspections are, what are available, what you can get, and what the values that they kind of bring to the table, especially for our negotiations and so forth. But this is also going to be a part of our buyer series and our seller series, so we'll add these into the playlist as they come available.
Yeah, sounds great. So we've talked a little bit about home inspection. The home inspection, kind of going through the house with a fine-tooth comb, checking the sinks, checking the electrical outlets, checking the attic, checking the crawl space. But you guys offer really a whole range of products in addition to that of some of the things that wouldn't be covered in that. So kind of jump into some of those smaller, more specialty inspections. Why is that important? What situations might somebody really want those?
Oh, that's a great question. So the home inspection is checking the structure of the house. Like if you're walking in your front door, like everything inside the house, above the house, below the house, like in the crawl space if you've got one, making sure that all functions as intended. But there are a lot of things not covered within the scope of the home inspection. For example, like a termite inspection, right? So maybe not always required, but we would definitely always recommend one. But that's
this area of the country for sure.
Yeah, I mean, here you've either got termites, you've had termites, or you're going to get termites at some point. So termites is not scary. If you see evidence in a house, like that in itself is not scary. Like that's normal in this part of the country. It's just important to make sure it's been treated or make sure that not going to have an issue in the future with it. So that's an example, right? Termite inspection.
Okay.
So we'll offer the termite inspections. We'll offer, let's say you live out in a rural property out in the county, so you might have well and septic.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you live in the city, you don't need to get a well and septic inspection.
Unless it's an old house that's still...
However, yes, exactly. We've all seen that too, where I had to question. Anyway, we share a lot of stories about that, but you may have had a house that once was connected to well and septic that you think or have been told it might have been connected to the city. You don't always know if that's accurate or not. But if you're in the county and you know you have well and septic, we can schedule that for you.
Okay.
A lot of these extra services that we're talking about, we will either do them ourselves in-house, or in some cases, we'll work with some great vendors. Like today, we work with some great septic inspection companies that we recommend.
Gotcha.
But either way, we'll schedule it for you, get it on the calendar, save you guys the extra phone calls, and our office takes care of all of that.
Gotcha.
So well and septic, which we definitely recommend if you're on well and septic. Looked at a septic inspection last week where thankfully, like we found it with the sewer scope issue, and then they went ahead and followed through and had the septic inspection. But when they dug up the covers and looked in the tanks, they had some issues with that, with the drain field. Expensive repair. It was very good that the client knew that, going in.
Before closing.
Before closing. And so that's a good example. Well, septic.
Okay.
Sometimes you might have a client who's had bad experience or severe allergies in the past, and they're really concerned about mold. And you'll hear some people say, oh, you're a home inspector, you can't say mold. Don't say the word mold, you're going to scare everybody. But like the reality is, I'm looking out the window, like there's mold outside, there's mold spores everywhere, right? But we can do an air quality test. And if we see visible signs of something going on the walls, we can use swabs and swab them and send a sample to the lab. So we can absolutely do an air quality test that will identify the types of spores and if they're elevated or not.
Okay.
So specifically, if you hear your client or someone's buying a house and has severe allergies and is concerned, like that's a great value to protect the client.
Especially if you're doing something like a remodel or, it's been not necessarily lived in a while and stuff like that.
And that's right, because sometimes a house, if it hasn't been remodeled or touched, you can kind of understand, hey, this house is 40 years old and it hasn't been remodeled. I can see all these signs. But if you walk into a freshly remodeled house that's 40 years old, maybe they've covered up some potential concerns. And so you can identify those with some specialty testing like an air quality test.
That makes a lot of sense.
Radon, most people have probably heard the term radon. North Carolina definitely has high levels of radon. It's kind of geographical. Radon is a naturally occurring gas, comes out of the decay in the soils, and the EPA, or the Environmental Protection Agency, has deemed like certain levels to be a health hazard, kind of like smoking a certain number of packs of cigarettes a day. So radon, probably almost half of our clients will get a radon test. It's higher in certain levels, but if they're moving from, say, like radon's not that high at our beach, at our beaches in North Carolina, but if the client's moving from Connecticut or somewhere up north or Pennsylvania or some area that's had really high levels, they're coming down, they're still going to want the test, right? So radon's a good example of another test we offer.
And if that comes in super duper high, there are mitigation ways to take care of that. Do you find
Absolutely.
radon more like in a house with a basement or a house with a crawl space as opposed to slab? Or
statistically, if you look at all the houses we've tested, the houses with basements would test higher than a house on a crawl space. Same with slabs. Slabs can test higher than a house on a crawl space. However, we have definitely tested houses on crawl spaces that have high level of radon.
Wow.
And sometimes it's been once somebody goes in and does an awesome thing to condition their crawl space, or to take some measures in the crawl space to control moisture. So they may have sealed the crawl space, added a dehumidifier, but when they do those things in a crawl space, it can affect how the radon levels.
Because the radon moves with the air, right?
Yes,
Doesn't it?
Yep. So if
Because
you're
it's
not
a gas.
So if you're not right, it's a gas and it's odorless. Like you can't see it, smell it, taste it, right? Only use these fancy testers to identify it. But that's exactly right. If you had a traditional crawl space that's ventilated, and now you seal it off and it doesn't ventilate, well, it still comes up, permeates through the vapor barriers under the house. So only way to know that's really to get it tested.
Wow.
So now you can get it more of a potency to it.
Yes.
Because of it.
Yep. And the EPA will recommend if you do structural changes to your house, you should get your house retested for that very reason, right? Or I've got an unfinished basement, now I finish it, you should get your house tested for radon levels.
What would change in that? Because I mean, I have a basement. You guys did a radon when we purchased. We are getting ready to finish it. I mean, it's semi-finished at the moment. But what would cause it to change in that arena?
Primarily, it's going to be related to how the basement air ventilated before and how it ventilates in the going forward after the changes. So it may have mixed air with a crawl. Like if you have a partial basement and partial crawl space, it may exchange air and then just be ventilated outside. So a lot of factors into it, but mostly it's how is the air exchanged in the basement before and after any changes.
Gotcha. And Kristen, I know you've mentioned this on some of our other episodes about the sewer scope specifically. So what is that and why is that important?
The sewer scope is we run a camera from the house, clean out, to the street or to the septic tank.
Gotcha.
And
I think you guys have described it as what David said, the colonoscopy of house
Yep, that's
tests.
exactly right. And Kristen's our expert in sewer scopes.
Okay.
Never touched one, but I know a lot about them.
Okay, so it's running through the pipes. Why is that important?
Well, you've got a lot of defects that can be in those pipes. They could be cracks. You could have cracks. You could have a misalignment, a belly in the pipe.
Okay.
You could have a whole collapsed pipe, in some of the older cast iron. But the most common defects we find are in new construction, where those pipes have been, put in the ground and then they put heavy equipment out on the yard. And it crushes the pipe.
The concrete truck pulls in to lay the driveway,
or the bobcat running across, lay inside, and because remember the old pipes in old houses are cast iron or metal, like they're not
they could abstain it,
right? They're not flexible. So now you take a long 10-foot stick of PVC, right? We can all do this. It's flexible. So if they in new construction, if they don't excavate where the pipe's going to go nice and level, and let's say the guy out there digs the trench like this, well, you lay that pipe down there, the pipe's going to do that once you backfill it. And so that's one of the things we see a lot of when Kristen says a belly, it's a low spot, right?
Holds water.
And it holds water because believe it or not, like you can't have, like the drainage of the pipes has to be a certain slope. If it's not sloped enough, in the drainage, the solids get left behind. Like the solids and liquids don't drain properly. If it's too steep, like the liquids will outrun the solids. Anyway, you'll get you'll get stuff left behind too. So
Wow.
it can't be too steep, can't be too
Just the
It's
magic
got to be
pitch.
sloped just right, so everything solids and liquids goes down the pipe like it should. But in a low spot with a belly, like that's not, you can't run a tool down there and fix that if it's got a belly in the pipe. So that's important. But we see that a lot with the PVC drains, in addition to stuff that gets put in the pipes during the construction process.
And so, Kristen, we're talking probably a couple of $100 to have it scoped, but worth potential clog or break or something in the lines. We're thinking that's tens of thousands of dollars, but potentially.
It could be. Yeah, it's kind of like a roof repair. You know it's going to cost a lot, and it's just great to know on the due diligence period what you're looking at.
Before
because
closing.
if you move my family of 5 in and, washing uniforms and somebody's showering, somebody flushes the toilet, but we bought from a couple that was, an older couple.
Yeah.
They didn't have a problem. Yeah. They truly didn't have a problem, didn't know they had a problem, but we would overload the system the first week. So it's just a traumatic find because it always backs back into the home from the lowest plumbing.
And people would
point.
say, well, we had a home inspection done. They flushed the
Absolutely.
toilets.
That's what
Yep.
they always
It worked
say.
fine.
Yep.
But it wasn't that consistent load of
Yep.
water running through the system.
We didn't put
to
the
back it
same
up.
volume of, you can't do that until you live in a house and put that many gallons through the system. So
We just scoped the city of Greensboro's got a really nice park downtown, and the fountain backed up. And so we just scoped the city fountain to show because they got a very, very aggressive estimate on the repair,
Okay.
wanted a second set of eyes
Okay.
on it. We're not going to do an estimate.
Yeah.
And so we found that we agreed with that one on how bad the repair was that was needed. And so
For a
just
fountain.
looking at what's in the pipes and how that water runs. Some of our agents get one with every home inspection because they've paid for a couple of repairs just to do a good gesture toward their client after closing. It was, they felt like it was something that maybe they could have helped with but didn't see.
Yeah.
And they get one on every
Somebody got burned and
inspection now,
They'll
right?
not get burned again.
And they
Yeah.
can, you'll see them go in. They can remove the roots from the lines. Roots travel toward where water flows.
Yep.
And
That
so
makes
that
sense.
slight hairline fracture in the PVC pipe on the new construction, it creates immediately anything in that yard is going to grow toward that pipe. And so we get asked a lot, like, well, which was first, the crack or the root? And we can't usually tell you that, but you can see the roots in the lines.
And
Wow.
and when we say roots, it's not because before
It's
we
like a
started doing
hair.
this, it's like a hair. It's not like you're thinking I can see the root under the oak tree coming across the ground, whatever. It's not a big thick root. It is like a hair.
So it's just creating this fine mesh all in there.
It looks like a hairball, right? I mean, it just looks like like hair
It
sticking
slowly
through.
starts holding paper,
Wow.
But it
going through
catches,
the line.
right,
It
what
starts
flows
catching
down, right,
things, and
right.
and eventually it backs it back up into the home.
Wow. So you guys have packages for, hey, if somebody wants to do A, B, and C, or A, D, and E, or whatever the kind of combination so that people can get a little bit of discount as they're stacking inspections on top of each other. Is that correct?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, gotcha. So really, I mean, for the listeners here, that's something for you to talk to your real estate agent about.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take every each scenario is unique. Age of the home, condition of the home, some of the things we may have observed as we walked through the house with you. Maybe we're under contract, maybe we're not. Typically, you are under contract, and that would be something to say, okay, here's the list. Which ones are important? What needs to be focused on based on their budget and their priorities, and then getting up with you guys. And they may need some education from you as well on like, hey, I don't really understand why I would want this, because some of them are a couple of $100, some of them are several $100s, some of them are, so just understanding that so we're not spending money needlessly. But it sounds like that certain situations would really require a kind of a customized package.
It could be, and some people may want that sewer scope after they move in,
Yeah, makes sense.
or an air quality test after they move in. Like the market we've been in,
Yeah.
they're going to buy the home either way.
Gotcha.
And so there's some things they can do after they've moved in,
Yeah.
but they're available during due diligence if you've got a willing seller that wants to help.
Gotcha.
We have another package that's our Home Sweet Home package for pre-drywall. We mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
And that's
okay.
a pre-drywall inspection, and then we do a when they're moving in inspection with the sewer scope on that one.
Okay.
because we really
just to make sure everything's clean there.
right.
Gotcha.
Those pipes aren't often covered
Yeah.
during the building process.
Oh, and sometimes they fill up the tub with drywall, putty.
Oh, heck
More
yeah.
times
just all-
than they don't.
Yeah,
They
it's
do.
almost a catch-all. Yeah,
Yep.
it can
and
be.
So everything goes down that line. It's great to look at, before they start running like all the water
Gotcha.
in the house.
Okay.
Then we do an 11-month inspection.
Okay, because
after
typically new
they've-
home builders will have a
Yep.
12-month, what they call like the bumper-to-bumper warranty.
Right.
So a month 11, right before that first year is up, you guys are coming in. That's settle into the house, anything that may have happened, just to make sure
Yep.
they catch everything, so that their builder warranty company can fix it.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah.
After
Okay.
it's kind of got a few bruises, from
Yeah.
people living in it and
Yeah.
from
Sure.
a family living there.
And pre-drywall inspection. I mean, we talked in another episode about how you guys can do a lot, but you can't see through the walls once
After-
the drywall is up.
Except
After-
for pre-drywall.
yes.
So pre-drywall is kind of that X-ray vision.
Yep.
And of course, if it's an existing home, it's an existing home. But new home construction, there's a phase of the process where they stop the construction. They call it the dry-in or the rough-in phase, where dry-in would be windows. So rough-in phase, they've done all the HVAC, rough-in, electrical, and plumbing, and that gives them, they got to stop because the city or the county has to come in and do their inspection, make sure everything behind the walls looks good. So at that stage, you guys will be coming in. You can see, okay, is the wiring set, plumbing set, framing, is everything structurally the way it needs to be, all that sort of, anything I'm missing on that pre-drywall.
No, that's exactly right. Like we love to get in there, before the insulation has been done and before then obviously the drywall is installed. But because we didn't know really quite the value of it until we started offering that service. Like we knew it was good, right? But until we started doing it and seeing all the concerns that we see, like it's not a reflection of like, oh my goodness, this is a terrible builder, or this neighborhood is no good, or it's not a reflection of that. It's the fact that a home has tens of thousands of components, and you're working with lots and lots of folks in the trades to build a home, and
Sure.
and we are human and we're going to make mistakes, and
Yeah.
so we go in and we'll see, the HVAC, or the electrician comes in after HVAC and like something's in their way. So what do? Everybody got a Sawzall, right? Y'all know the Sawzall solves all problems, right?
Yeah. Somebody else didn't do it right.
Somebody else didn't do it
Yeah.
right, so I'm going to zip, 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 done. Now I can get what I need to where it needs to go. Oh, that was a load-bearing beam that's not supposed to be modified. Like, actually, that's a huge deal, and now you've compromised the integrity of it, and so now I'm going to expect to see some sagging, and then you're going to get more cracks in the drywall. It doesn't mean the house is going to fall down, but we're going to see some implications because of it. But once that drywall is on,
It's all gone.
it's all gone, and then we see where people, like, you hang these I'll say the floor trusses are these important members of the house that hold a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Well, you're supposed to put a certain number of fasteners or nails in the ends of them. And if somebody runs out and they don't feel like going back to their van to get more of them, like we'll just see like, oh, everything's perfect. Oh, the last four are missing all the nails in them. Okay.
They just ran out of nails.
They
didn't want to make the Lowe's run.
or they did, or they were out of inventory, or they had inventory supply issues. Whatever the issue
Yeah.
is, like we'll see things like that can be easily remedied
Yeah.
Wow.
pre-drywall.
Wow.
Yeah, which would be astronomically expensive to fix later.
Right.
Ripping
And
things
nor
up.
are you going to be able to identify the root cause of why things are sagging or moving around once the drywall's up. You're not going to see it.
Yeah.
A lot of value in that one.
Well,
Definitely.
and here's one thing I'll also say, and this is back to the whole vendor situation, is they've done studies for the last 10 to 15 years for every five plumbers, electricians, framers, masons, all the trades, for every five that retire, to replace them. So we're running into a huge deficit in those blue-collar trades, the building of the homes, the setting in place of the electrical systems and plumbing systems and everything. So it's caused it to be more difficult to find good quality work. And these builders, they're on a timetable. They got to be able to build a house on time. And so, yes, it's nothing against the builder. They're having just as much trouble finding good tradesmen as they can, as everybody else is. But sometimes it does cause there to be, cutting corners in a little thing that we didn't realize. And now the home is 8-9 years old. We're trying to sell it, and there's a floor sagging, or there's something major astronomical that's going to cost who knows how many tens of thousands of dollars to fix.
So let me ask this question. You got a slew of different inspections. What's kind of the pricing of everything and a home inspection? Like, what's that variance so people kind of have an idea?
Just a home inspection, I'd plan on $450, $500.
Okay.
We build it based on the age and the square footage of the home.
Okay.
New construction, on a slab is going to take us a lot less time than a 1950 home on a crawl space.
Gotcha.
It's just that's how we build it. But I would tell clients if they want to get the general, like 3 inspections, the home pest, the radon, or the home pest and the sewer scope, or I'd tell them to plan on $700 to $800.
Okay.
The septic inspections are going to be between 500 and 700. That's not we don't have any pass through cost for our company, but they all went up. We're seeing those vendors go up with gas and with those trucks and with labor shortage. Those went up a lot in 23. And so those inspections cost a lot,
And
and
that
that would
typically
include
cover-
getting a pumping too.
Just going to say
Getting
that.
a
So
pumping
it
too.
does include pumping.
And
yeah.
some of our buyers, will get creative and ask the seller to help with the pumping costs since it's their waste. There's different ways you can do it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
We do pool inspections in house. We were waiting, 8 weeks for pool inspections at the height of kind of, COVID was good to puppy industry and pool industry. Both of those thrived when we stayed at home for several months. And we do pool inspections in house too. So
Okay. Swimming
even
pools.
if a
Gotcha.
buyer has another home inspector they really prefer, we can come out and do the pool inspection.
Okay.
And that's the fastest in the triad.
What exactly is entailed in a pool inspection?
It's probably more complicated than one thinks. Like, oh, it's a swimming pool, right? It's a big bathtub that holds water. Like, I don't know, is it leaking? Right. That's probably, but there's so many components to the pool inspection. It's a lot of electrical.
Okay.
So you'll have a breaker panel, electrical box for the lights, the receptacles, the pool pump, right?
The shooting the water.
It's pushing the water, right? Because in a pool, it doesn't just hold water; it's got to circulate the water to keep it clean. And so you got a pump and some sort of chlorination system. You may have a heater on it. So in this area of the country, they're not all heated, but some of them have heaters.
Gotcha.
So it can be the pump, the heater, the electrical system, lots of safety features as far as making sure all the electrical stuff is bonded correctly. The barrier system, like the fence around the pool. Like that's what we always see issues with that, right? For safety, everybody knows like you want to keep little children away from or the neighbors. If you're in a neighborhood, keep the neighbors' kids from coming over. So issues with the barrier, all that's looked at. It's a lot more than just like, oh, does the pool hold water?
Oh, wow, yeah, that
or is
makes
it
sense.
cracked? Right. It's all the other components that go along with it.
Wow.
There's definitely more stuff that I have not had
Oh, yeah.
a client use.
I'm learning a ton of stuff right now. So, wow.
The
okay.
sewer scope was interesting. We had one of our agents had called, and they're like, hey, they said something about a sewer scope. And we're like, I'm not sure what that is yet, because it was fairly new. And so we're like, well, I don't know. Call them and ask them and see what they say
It's a
about it.
good offering. It really is. It's a great value add.
Yeah, and just understand these inspections are paid for whether you end up closing on the house or not, right? These folks will have done their hard work during that due diligence process, so they've earned their money. But it's 10 to 20 to 30 times return on investment if you do find a problem like that. And so we're always advising, hey, let's come up with a common sense package of a few of the high quality inspections to make sure that we're covering our bases so that you have as few question marks as you can. But you the buyer, get to make that decision. One other thing I would throw out, and I don't think we mentioned this, somebody has, let's say, an estate. They've inherited a house. It's an old house. You could potentially have a seller go in and pay for a home inspection as a pre-listing home inspection just so they understand the potential problems. We've had one or two of those situations come up where people said, look, I haven't been in the crawl space in 20 years. I have no idea. And that's actually a lot of value too, because it helps head off some of those oh my gosh conversations at the pass before the house gets under contract and there's money and stress and all of that.
Those are as emotional as a buyer too, because especially if it's an estate, those are such emotional inspections that can run real high too.
Sure, and
So
it, multiple
having
errors and all.
looking at it on the front end of it
Yeah.
can take a lot of the sting
Yeah.
out of those transactions.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You want to make those because I've worked with one that had 8 sellers, and so when you have 8 sellers and everybody's got to agree and sign, then we need to know as much as we can ahead of time so that
Right.
when there's thousands of dollars on the line, we don't have, Aunt Susie refuses the common sense solution and all the other 7 of them saw they had some common sense. So that's always a good thing to make sure that we have that streamlined on that sort of particular situation.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, Like we're talking about a seller doing an actual inspection, is that as in depth as you would do on your normal inspection?
It's the same inspection.
Same inspection.
And we do them every week. I
Yeah.
mean, so yeah, it's a very common thing for us to do.
Yeah, provides just another level of value there. So
Yeah.
I think that's all I had. Did you have anything else?
I don't know. Did you guys have anything that we're missing? Any other specialties?
I just want to say I'm hearing y'all tell stories. I'm glad we do what we do because I'm glad y'all do what you do because I would much rather go crawl in a crawl space than face the challenges and the hurdles that y'all face every day. Like that's real work.
Well,
We love what we do, but y'all are amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. I just feel like it's so much about having a team.
Yeah.
You know, not necessarily a team where you're all on the same payroll, but a team where everybody has the same level of integrity, the same honesty, the same high level of communication, and we can work in conjunction with everybody to protect, counsel, you know, sometimes be a life coach for these buyers and sellers because it's a huge thing to navigate. And to be able to get someone from, hey, I'm thinking about buying or selling a house to, I just got the keys and I'm happy, can be a long process. And so I just really wanted to thank you guys for your hard work, your consistent high quality on the level of service that you're bringing. And I hope that we'll get to send a lot more business your way in the future. And so I think that about wraps it up.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Well, guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Like I said, we're going to add this to our buyer series and to our seller series. It'll be coming soon. If you can, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. Go ahead and hit the little bell icon so that you get all of our notifications. And if you can, follow us on social media. Share this with somebody who is in the process of buying and needs to know more about the inspection process. And we'll see you guys in the next video.
Sounds good.